and technical monitoring.
To reinforce exactly what President Macron has said, you know, it really comes down to the who and the what in particular. So as the President has said, this is unprecedented that we have an agreement here that involves both tech companies and countries. In the past, we've had either one or the other, and often not the same together, to committing to actually undertake different courses of action, each themselves and also together. Also, the what is different. Some of the forums that already exist, like for instance the Global Internet Forum to Counter Terrorism, the origins of that very firmly around, for instance, the rise and presence of ISIS. And so obviously in the ChristchurchCall, we're talking about violent extremism and terrorist content, but of course keeping in mind the drivers and the ideology behind the Christchurch attack, we are talking about a much broader sense of terrorism and violent extremism, and so that is a fundamental difference as well. And then it's just the practical outcomes that we're seeking. And so of course you see mention of data and algorithms in the text of the call, additional research, expectations around technological developments. We see a role for the GIFT-CT, the Global Internet Forum to Counter Terrorism. We see a role for that being broadened, for the infrastructure being enhanced, and we had a very practical conversation about that today. And also seeking a real crisis management response. If we have another 15 March, which I hope we do not, how can we make sure that we have a global response through those tech companies who are at the front line that mirrors what you would expect from within a country, where there is a coordinated response, where you see, as the President said, immediacy around takedown, and that's something that domestic legislation doesn't easily capture, but that we've been able to capture in this ChristchurchCall.
Yes, hi, it's Derek Cheng here from the New Zealand Herald. You've talked about the Christchurch test as whether any action will stop the likes of what happened on March 15 from happening again. Can you guarantee that this voluntary framework will pass that test? And can I also ask, was there any US representation at the summit today?
Again, we've, as I've said before, there has been constant contact at official level and very good engagement at official level, and that continues right up until today and no doubt will be beyond. And you can see the results of that in the statement the United States have released. And look, I don't need to speak for them. I think the statement, the supportive statement, speaks for itself. On the test, I absolutely believe that we have to continue to be pragmatic. Will what we're doing here make a difference in the future, and will it have made a difference for what we experienced on the 15th of March? We know from the announcement made by Facebook today that under that change of practice, the terrorist on the 15th of March would not have been able to live stream his act of violence. Now, that is, of course, just one element of the work that we must do. Ultimately, we want to be in a position to prevent harm in the first place, to make sure that lives aren't lost. And that's why, contained within the text, we also talk about the role that governments have to try and eliminate radicalisation and eliminate ideology of hate. And those are much harder questions, but that ultimately, I think, is what the Christchurch test is. Can we stop the broadcasting, but actually can we stop the hate in itself?
Juste un mot pour revenir sur le
To go back on the question of in what way what was said today will pass the Christchurch test. On the one hand, as the Prime Minister has just said, the commitment made by Facebook quite clearly, given the characteristics of terrorism, they will not allow terrorists to use Facebook Live. Now, to be very clear, we are making progress regarding terrorist content. The commitment made by the businesses represented is an immediate permanent withdrawal of content. The commitment made by Facebook is to better regulate live streaming and to withdraw sensitive material from this medium. And then there's another area, hatred content, and that's a more complex area which we are working on. And the forum we have created will allow us to progress, and this is the discussion we had with Facebook. A person who had access online to content of a racist nature, anti-Semitic, hateful, Islamist terrorism, all forms of hateful content that can induce a terrorist act, even if they're not terrorist acts as such. We have to progress in that area to achieve smart regulation. So that's the grey area. In each of our countries, we have our laws to forbid this, but we need new cooperation with platforms to make it possible to define the responsibilities of the platform when they convey speech, hate speech, and we have to define the cooperation between those platforms and governments. So when we've defined the legal characteristics, we must ensure that the platforms withdraw the content and enable us to identify who is disseminating the hate speech and the negative ideas. Mr. President, the European regulations which are underway are asking the platforms to withdraw hateful content, terrorist content, within 1 hour. The Christchurch appeal talks about an immediate withdrawal. What will be the time granted to operators to withdraw hateful material, and how will you be able to impose that on operators? I'd like to ask President Macron. An AFP alert mentions Mrs. Angela Merkel recognizes that she has a conflictual relationship with you. What comment do you have on this? I want to be very specific. I know that it's a complex subject. The European directive talks about the golden hour for terrorist content, the golden hour. There is a grey area regarding hateful content. In our bill, we're going to define that more clearly. And so it's the terrorist content. The definition is clear and firm and strict. When we withdraw content within an hour, it all amounts to the same thing, basically. Our aim is the Christchurch appeal makes it possible to broaden what had been decided on in the European directive to other geographical areas and to other countries. And beyond this, the Christchurch appeal sets up a cooperation methodology with internet players and civil society. Our goal, beyond terrorist content under the European Union, is to strengthen the European Union by being more strict in terms of withdrawing hateful content that can encourage terrorism and violence in society. Hateful content, anti-Semitic, racist, which can lead to terrorism in the same way as harassment, internet harassment. We now want to regulate that space better. That's what we will be doing under French law before extrapolating it to European law. Next, Chancellor Merkel said the same thing as I said a few yards from here when I talked about a very fruitful exchange. We have differences of opinion, but we have compromises. In a relationship, particularly between France and Germany. What are the options? There's the sterile confrontation scenario. We don't agree and we don't overcome our disagreements. This has happened in the past, and it leads either to war or to a lack of inaction. Another scenario is sterile agreement. We don't want to say the truth, we don't want to discuss our disagreements, that we don't define anything, we make no progress. We organize useless press conferences. Europe falls asleep because we don't want to disagree on anything. I don't believe in sterile confrontation nor in sterile agreement. I believe in fruitful confrontation. We submit ideas, we test ideas, and we try to arrive at a compromise. At the Sorbonne,
qui permet ensuite à l'Europe d'avancer. La semaine dernière, nous avons proposé avec les Pays-Bas un texte ambitieux sur le climat, qui va dans le sens de ce que la Première ministre a fait passer dans son pays. Neutralité carbone 2050. On a réussi à rassembler 9 pays, 9 États membres. Beaucoup me disaient, c'est terrible, l'Allemagne n'est pas avec vous. Confrontation, vous n'allez pas y arriver. Il y a 2 jours, l'Allemagne nous a rejoints autour de ce texte et de cette ambition climatique. Confrontation féconde, on avance. Et donc, voilà, nous devons réussir à accepter des désaccords momentanés, de ne pas être totalement d'accord sur tout pour avoir le courage d'affirmer ce que nous voulons. Ce qui est attendu de la France en Europe, c'est de dire clairement ce qu'elle veut, ce qu'elle porte, quelles sont ses ambitions, et ensuite de construire un compromis avec l'Allemagne pour pouvoir avancer. C'est ça notre histoire, et c'est le cœur de notre relation. C'est comme ça que nous avons avancé sur beaucoup de choses, et que nous continuerons à le faire avec le même esprit de construction et d'avenir qui nous anime, la chancelière Merkel et moi-même. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions? On est bon. Hein? Thank you again. Thank you.